Hello, everyone. Welcome to another discussion of The White Luck Warrior. This is the second book of, oh man, the Aspect Emperor series and
You
the
got there.
fifth book of the second apocalypse. I always forget which to say in what order. Is it the second book of the second apocalypse? I'm just going to say Aspect Emperor from now on, but then I have to remember the name of the series. But yeah, so we're discussing chapters 4 through 6 today. We are making our way through the book approximately 100 odd pages, except we're all using different editions. So 1/6 of the book at a time. For next week, we didn't talk about it before, but I guess whatever brings us to the next 100 pages. With me, I have the usual group of friends. Carl, would you like to start us off with introductions?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm Carl, first time reader. That's me.
Cool. Dan?
Um,
Oh,
I'm
or
Justin. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm Justin, also a first-time reader.
Yeah, and I'm Dan, multiple time reader, multiple time enjoyer, first time discusser.
Keeper of the lore.
No, I don't. I think I keep less lore than you and other people. I always discover new lore that I didn't know about when I do research. I'm like, oh, how could I have been so stupid not to realize this was what was going on all along?
You know something's wrong when Dan has the longest introduction. What is going on? So yeah, I'm Steve, and I'm a second-time reader, and excited to talk the series. Lots of things I'm noticing on the second read.
Yeah. So this section saw the return of my favorite kids, as Steve put it earlier, and some more of them. We also saw Sorweel do something interesting. Should we start there?
Yeah, that was the first one after all, the first chapter. So.
Yeah. That was the first one, right? Even with Esmenet? No, that was the chapter after that. Okay.
We got an echo.
Yeah.
Think it might be Justin, maybe?
I'm hearing Varsha's voice echoing. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it might be just. Yeah, I think it is Justin. But not sure why.
Should I mute myself?
Do you have headphones?
Yeah, somewhere. I'll be back.
Yeah. Okay. Where were we?
Sorweel.
Yeah, Sorweel. I'm remembering what happened. I mean, he seems to be getting, getting more. How do I say? Getting along better with the rest of the company and with, the not the call, no, the guy in charge of them, I guess. He seemed to giving advice to them and stuff like that. They had a nice, I'm not say barbecue, but a nice campfire roast sort of thing,
Yeah, that they did.
good
They had their
bonding
first big
moment.
battle, it seemed like. Sorwheel's kind of enjoying that. I don't know. It definitely, that plot line in some ways feels like it's moving the slowest. And not to say that I found it boring. I am engaged and I feel this sense of just like growing dread and tension, just waiting for something terrible to happen. Because it's really I feel like we've been in a pretty solid status quo since fairly early on in the first book, as soon as the the Great Ordeal really began. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have very many thoughts about that chapter. I feel like all my thoughts are in the latter chapters that I was just like my jaw was on the floor the entire time.
I mean, there's the interesting. I don't know what you thought about the scene where they're torturing the Sranc. It's a bit. How do I say? It is a Sranc, but it also does feel a bit inhumane. But again, I'm not in that position, I guess. And people in war obviously commit way worse things. and it is basically an evil machine or something. But it sort of feels like torturing like an animal. Like it doesn't know any better, I guess, does it? I mean, they have some sort of intelligence, but
It's definitely not the most moral action. Steve, you look like you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say it's kind of what it's like their primary. It's what they were created and bred to do. But I guess that if you, I think the reaction. So they have the reaction of shock at first of torturing it, but when you look back on what it's done, I guess it makes you question, okay, if you'd witnessed these terrible things done to people that you cared about or people that you loved, would you feel the same way about torture and Sranc? I guess, does it matter? I guess, what does it do for the person who's torturing the thing? Is it a coping thing? Is it, I guess you can't really dehumanize a Sranc because they're like animals, but
It's not human.
But yeah, it's
Right.
an interesting kind of in war, what, just in general, what people are willing to do, the lengths are willing to go to when you kind of want revenge or you want payback.
I think it is an interesting, moral dilemma that, you can go back to Tolkien, who grappled with it with the orcs. I think he even wrote like kind of a letter or something like called or about the problem of the orcs and how, in his mythology, he was constantly changing his opinion about like where they came from, how they were created, were they corrupted elves? Were they just like made, like the Sranc were, and like how do you have this like compassionate, graceful deity, that like, well, how do they react to the orcs, right? Especially if the orcs are just like, this is all they knew, or they were corrupted in some way, right? Like they in some sense aren't acting of their own free will in a way. And I think it's kind of an interesting conundrum to think about, like a species that is intelligent, that's more intelligent than, most things we consider animals, but is still like functioning in a way we've considered to be, beyond the pale. And at the same time, right, if you're torturing it, like how much better are you being than it, right? It's kind of the challenge of that. Because I do think there is a sense of, we as humans, I think, oftentimes crave retributive justice. The vast majority of our justice systems, legal systems throughout history, throughout the world, are about retribution ultimately. And this is sort of an extreme version of that, right? And it does kind of make you, if you bother to like sit back and question it, which I think Bakker absolutely wants you to do, it is, it's an interesting thought experiment.
yeah. The other two things of that scene which I was thinking about was like the fact that it's Sorweel that does it, which up until now he was like, our sweet and gentle Sorweel, I guess. He hasn't been very violent up to now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that it also shows, at least to me, like the fact that everyone at the beginning is like hesitant, and then when someone starts and like it's sort of shown, oh, it's socially acceptable, this violence, then everyone is like let loose, I guess.
Yeah.
It's also another interesting aspect. But I don't know, I thought it was a pretty interesting scene, that one.
That probably was the most interesting scene in the section. I agree. Seeing kind of Sorweel's violence, the darkness inside him let out, you definitely get a better sense of, I mean, because he comes from a warrior culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a warrior culture that contends with the Sranc has for, hundreds, thousands of years, right? Hundreds of years, I guess it would be. And so, of course, right, like this is just part of life. Like he doesn't even think about it. It's just like, yeah, they're monsters, ruin them, destroy them, make them feel what they made your people feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't notice the torture scene. Looks like I blanked it out somehow, or or I may have not even read it because I don't know. Sometimes this book does this thing where it like turns 3 or 4 pages at a time because of the way the pages are structured. I don't know. When does this happen?
It's
Uh,
after they fight the Sranc, I think, right? And
yeah.
they like captured one, and
Okay.
they, I'm using this in a really dark way. They play with it, right? Like it is kind of this social. I think Dan is really right to point that out. It's like this social. There's a social aspect to it.
Okay. Okay. Makes
I
sense.
think it's like halfway through a chapter because then maybe more towards the end, but not the whole end because then there's like the whole discussion with the captain and then about the storks and what's going on, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. I'll look for it to see how I managed to miss it. But yeah, I like what you guys said about the loss of humanity. It doesn't make them any better if they did torture the. There's no need for that. It doesn't seem necessary.
I think something I've thought about while reading the series in general, and that I pondered once or twice before, is the idea that like we consider things like humane, right? We have this word that is intrinsically tied to our humanity, right? But it's like this ideal of like extreme compassion and grace and mercy, right? Which it's a very narrow view of what makes us as a species, obviously, right? Like I think the vast majority of people you would talk to would be like, oh yeah, humans can be incredibly violent. Humans can do this and that. But yet we still have this like ideal that we, in some way, it's like a story we tell ourselves, like this is what we truly are, like deep down. Like to be humane is to be graceful, to be merciful, to be gentle. And yet, we fight wars.
It's also, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. It's also a very like anthropocentric term, right?
that's so
It's
true.
it refers only to our own species, and it gestures toward the sense of human supremacy that's like innate in that. So maybe it's obviously we apply it to the way we treat other creatures, but like it's not in the root of the of the term.
Right. And I think that kind of, another thing related to that I was also thinking about is how what makes the Sranc scary is kind of the way that they're sort of represent in some ways the like most absolute horrific parts of what humans do, right? I think that's true with like a lot of kind of in fantasy, it's like showing the dark side or the light side, just like different symbolic reflections of humanity and even just individuals. And that we became the dominant species on this earth by dominating, right? That we conquered and killed, and that we have personally driven species to extinction. We are still doing that, right? And we are, destroying the planet and, or at least severely changing it. And, the planet keeps the score. Like we're at the end of the day, we're still like an animal that has to deal with, our geography. And I think it's, it's easy to forget kind of what we did to get to where we are, and to kind of take for granted also that our human perspective is like inherently more righteous. I mean, right, like we tell stories, right, that like Christianity, a lot of it, I'm not going to pretend to know every sect, but I know a lot of sects. I believe animals don't have souls, right? Humans have souls. Humans go to heaven or hell, right? Animals, that's not, they just die. And that there's something special about us. And I think that is potentially, when you talk about on like the kind of cosmic scale or even on the global scale, really, a potentially dangerous idea. And, or, I mean, if dangerous for, I guess, everything else around us more than even ourselves, in a sense.
Well, and ultimately ourselves, and
Yes, right. That we could.
it's
consume
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And to and the multiple ongoing like rolling genocides and attempted genocides that are taking place and have taken place all around the world all the time are part of that. And so it's a way that like inherently violent, imperialistic, whatever, like yeah, viewpoint is ultimately self-harming.
I mean,
for
you can see it
humanity.
in these books too, right? Humans killing the non-men pretty much, when probably the non-men could have helped them fight the consult, you know? I don't think that's very useful. And yeah, it was like, yeah, for sure the human, even in this universe, it's like, yeah, the religious texts tell them, you're the chosen ones, eliminate the non-men, get rid of everyone else, right? Yeah.
It
And what's interesting too is that at least I haven't gotten the sense that the non-men were really any better. So they're alien in a sense. They have a different perspective on things. They function differently. They are like biologically fundamentally different than humans. But I mean, apparently they're not so biologically fundamentally different that they couldn't breed with humans sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's enough overlap there, right? That's significant, right? We can't breed with like apes, for example.
Yeah.
But they enslaved humans. They killed each other, right? Like
Yeah.
it's for something that we call, non-men. It's there's certainly a lot in common with us.
it just for any of you or anyone listening, in my edition, it starts on page 108 and into 109. They talk about these are beasts without souls. They are flesh without spirit, obscenities like no other. So I think that dehumanization, I think, is kind of reflecting on what they've done with the bodies they found with black seed on them and things like that. So yeah, it's
But it does reflect what, you hear a lot of these things saying in modern wars. It's like, oh, the enemy is like, they have no soul. They're like beasts. They have no good nor evil. They did these things to our people, right? It's the same rhetoric. Maybe here it's true, but the fact that it's true doesn't make it not the same, you
yeah.
know?
Well, yeah, it's the tale of the barbarian, right? It's one that we repeat over and over and over across, basically every culture throughout all of history, right? What's different, what we don't understand, what we, for whatever reason, view as primitive, we believe is, then more animal, which we believe, is more, I don't know, untamed, more violent. Yeah. I am curious within the context of this specific series if the Sranc literally have no souls, though. Because it seems pretty clear at this point that souls are like a cosmological reality. And so, I mean, I guess we don't know that for certain, but it kind of seems like damnation is real. And if damnation is real, then souls are probably real. So, what's the deal with the Sranc? When they die, is it just oblivion? Or, that kind of seems like what happens if you don't have a soul.
It,
It also makes you wonder, is that better than getting tormented for all of eternity?
well, they do also discuss the Shrink being been driven, almost like they're being directed in some way.
Mhm.
So true. Yeah, good point.
Maybe we'll learn a bit more about them.
Perhaps.
I mean, we heard of, I guess there seems to be something like what's it called? The Yoke Legion, right? What is it called? Uh, that the consuls used to chain the Sranc together whenever they ever, and then when they were close to the enemy, like let them free to, just run them as sort of a way to control them. Because I guess without the no god, they cannot control them. They're just pretty much like animals,
Right.
which is interesting. So I wonder how is the consul gonna use the Sranc then to fight battles against the Great Ordeal if they can't really control them?
With the no god.
Well, it's not there yet, it seems.
I know, but they're cooking that up in that arc.
Okay.
It's got to be what's going on in there. I don't. That's. I think it's interesting though. Speaking of the way the Sranc are described as mindless, savage, whatever, soulless, directionless. Like they just kind of roam the Northlands, breeding and warring and eating grubs, and like the parallels to humans, are there for us to observe. Like the different warring factions of humans, between the North and the South, and all the different nation states or whatever they are all united by Kellhus, who's sort of like playing the role of the no god for the humans, and giving them all one voice and giving them all direction, just as like the no god was, did that for the Sranc in the first apocalypse.
Yeah, but Kellhus is on the good side. That's the difference.
Yeah,
right?
Good side. He's that good guy that made 8,000 people behead all their fellow citizens.
Yeah. Sometimes,
Holy war.
you need to behead a couple of people to make an omelet. Sometimes.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I want to make a good. Yeah.
Didn't Proyas say something like, also during the Unification Wars, there was like a massacre so terrible that when we reported the numbers to him, he like fainted or something?
I think he just started
Proyas
throwing up.
Said that, I was throw up or something. He was
but
sick.
who fainted?
Proyas.
Who fainted? Proyas fainted. Okay.
Maybe he didn't faint. Maybe he threw up or something. But
I think it's literally was in like the last section we read, where Proyas, when we were in his POV, he talked about how he literally just had to like walk out of the room and throw up. It was just so horrific.
Given he went through what we saw in the First Crusade,
Yeah, crazy.
in the First Crusade, in the Holy War, not the First Crusade.
Potato. Oh man.
Okay. Well, should we go to the next?
On?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
before
I
we
guess
move
so.
on,
There was one
Yeah.
thing interesting, the interaction between the mandate schoolman and this guy, Sorweel, how, I guess we're reading Sorweel's POV, so we can't maybe take the interpretation of his expressions for pride and being, like basically that the schoolman is proud of Sorweel for how he's conducting himself through all of this. But I thought that was interesting because Akamian, as a teacher, like that's a big part of his identity, and he takes pride in his students and so on. This is not necessarily something that the schoolman maybe taught Sorweel, but as his charge, I guess he's proud of him for showing himself as more than he was before. That I just thought that interaction was interesting.
I hate how much I like that guy.
Yeah.
I think it's because like I know fundamentally that like he's a spy, and he's like he just is so much like he's like really nice, like, and he's like, he's kind of a dork, and he's always like, spitting out fun facts and not so fun facts, and Sorweel just doesn't appreciate how much knowledge this guy has, and so I kind of feel bad for him, because I know what that's like when you're like talking, I teach, and when you're dealing with like students who like clearly are just like checked out, and you're like, what do I need to do to get through to you? And it's just, oh man, I like him, and I can't wait for something horrible to happen to him.
I like him. I can't wait for something horrible to happen. There was also a tiny moment when I think he was recalling something to do with the dreams, the Seshwata dreams, and Sorweel noticed something on his face. I think overall in this interaction, I like the external perspective of the mandate schoolman that we're getting, not through Akamian's eyes, but through the mandate schoolman. It's hard not to see Akamian in him. That's kind of why I like him a little bit. But you're right. Something horrible is bound to happen to him soon, and I can't say I can't wait for it, but it'll happen. I'm resigned, I guess.
It seems so obvious. I don't know why I didn't make that connection, but you're right. Like he's a teacher, like a Kamian, and that yeah, he's literally another mandate schoolman. You're totally right. There is that parallel there, which has to be intentional, right?
He's even kind of like paunchy, like a Camian used to be.
Right.
You know?
That's right.
But I think a lot of it mandate schoolmen were sent to like nobles to be teachers and to also, teach their message.
Right.
And try
They
to
know their
spy
stuff.
the consult out,
Yeah.
which we
They
know
can-
they succeeded
yeah.
vastly at.
It also is though like that the whole I think part of the challenge of this character is that like we know he's in some way or another a spy, and Akamian was a spy, and we were like all on Akamian's side because it was like, oh, he's spying for the good of like fighting the consult. Well, in a sense, that's what this guy's spying for. So it really kind of I think it's challenging in that way, seeing the parallels with characters we have grown to love.
Yeah. Cool. I guess we can move on to the second chapter.
Yeah. So we met Indrilatas in the second chapter, which is interesting. He's an interesting character, right?
He is. Yes, he
But
is.
yeah, he is.
What do you guys think of his philosophy?
It makes sense. I don't see why it needed to be demonstrated quite in that manner.
How would you have demonstrated it?
Is that? I don't know, but
I mean,
There-
admittedly, the guy's not working with many tools.
it's true. So, I mean, I feel like Kellhus made some points that parallel this in the first series, right? Essentially, what he's saying is like, I don't like care about societal constructs, and I'll do what I want. And interestingly, he is apparently a higher level creature than men, but what he's doing is very animalistic, which I guess is an interesting point to make. But also, he's not behaving quite like an animal. He's shoving his bad behavior into people's faces to disgust them, which animals don't tend to do. So, I don't know. Or not disgust them, I guess, to make a point. But
I wouldn't put it past him though to be like, basically to do it just to get a rise out of someone.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on with the, this is a higher level being, at least like we associate, again, going back to the idea of like a barbarian, right? There's this idea that it's like less intelligent, the barbarian is less intelligent. And you have this guy in Indrilatas who's like too intelligent for his own good, cannot process all of the sensory information, and so he acts like an animal, how we would view as like an animal, right? Where he just doesn't care for our social constructs, our dignity, right? Anything like that. Like the most shocking thing to me is that with how sensitive he is, apparently, that he can stand to smell as bad as he must smell. Like, I'm sorry, like you're telling me that this guy who must have the most insane sense of smell is just comfortable just like sitting in his own reek. Crazy. But I mean, I guess literally that's the point. He's crazy. I loved it. That scene is one of my favorite scenes in the series so far. I was on the edge of my seat. It was like my eyes were glued to the page. I was so stressed out in a good way.
yeah, I was worried about who would hurt whom, and I'm not sure who did. I mean, I'm pretty sure Indrilatas hurt Kelmomus somehow, but we'll wait to find out how. I thought that scene was going to end with Kel killing Indrilatas or doing some harm to him.
Well, he seems to
But I
see
think he
through
came
him,
away
right?
being harmed.
Seems to be smarter than him, somewhat.
Yeah.
I don't know. He kind of falls for. I mean, are you talking about
No,
Kel?
Indrilatas.
Because I feel like okay, yeah, it does kind of seem like he's at least like with age, he's like grown wiser in some sense. But there is the implication that maybe Kel does, he plants a seed that will bear fruit. We'll see, with Mathanet and how all of that plays
But
out.
you don't think that Indrilatas knows what Kellhus trying to do. So maybe
Oh
he
no,
has his
totally.
own intentions, I guess, and his own plans.
Yeah, I guess I would wonder what, like certainly he'd kind of dominated that
Mm.
conversation. It felt like Kelmomus was getting played, and so I'm curious to see how everything with Mathanet plays out, and if like I just don't know why he would want Mathanet dead other than just like because fuck you, that's why. Which it does kind of seem like that's why he does everything, but at a certain point, why also not spare Mathanet to be like fuck you to my little brat brother?
Oh, you think Indrilatas will want Mathanet dead?
No, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
he has now this little knife, so he can like presumably cut free of his restraints and kill Mathanet.
I mean, his
And
restraints are chains. I don't know. But maybe, yeah, with time. I guess he has a
right,
lot of time, though.
yeah, with a
A lot
long
of time.
time, or just lunge forward
Yeah.
enough. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is exactly. But clearly the point is that he's
Yeah.
dangerous now, or additionally dangerous, and we'll see. I have no idea where that's going to go. I do think that Mathanet is not long for this world,
At
one
least we
way or
know
another.
what Kelmoma's plan is now.
Yeah.
And what he's afraid of, why he hates Kellhus so much, and now Mathanet.
Mm.
Wait, what do we know of Kelmoma's plan? To have Indrilatas kill
Yeah.
him?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, to have him free himself, and presumably to kill Mathanet. But I mean,
Yeah.
who knows
I think
what?
I think he like literally basically tells him to do it. So it's because he just wants to be, mommy's favorite. He wants to be the only one around.
Yeah,
Which talking about that he talks about how much he clearly hates Mimara because Mimara was her favorite, and he knew that. And then you hear Mimara's perspective on him later, and she was like, "Oh, he was so sweet and good, and he loved me so much. He was just a child." And I'm like, "Not again!" Oh, I hate this little kid. I hate him
yeah,
so
that was
much.
great. During that
It's,
whole
it's
scene, I was just like, "Yeah, come closer, Like he keeps being like, "Come here, little brother," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, just a little closer." Yeah,
get in. Yeah, maybe Indrilatas is the hero we need. I hope we deserve better than him, but he might just be the one it takes.
To do something about Kel, right? Are we expecting that he'll do anything
Yes,
else? Around? Okay.
that's really what I mean. I mean, I'm not sure he would be any better, but
Can't be any worse.
I
I
mean,
don't know. You're
At
right.
least he seems fun, right?
He is fun. Yeah.
for some definition of fun.
fun
Okay.
I'm,
in that G.G. Allen sort of way, I guess.
listen, I will absolutely take the God Emperor that just like drops a shit in front of me over the one that like will kill me for looking at his mother wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I agree with that.
Yeah.
Never really thought about that.
I think we've had in history a lot of, crazy kings and emperors, and they're usually pretty fun to read about. You know, the guy with the horse, what is it, Caligula, and the English king that
Yeah.
went to the sea and did the thing and told the sea to go away. They're kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm curious about the last line of that interaction talks about how Kel drops a file for Indrilatas to discover to free himself, and like I just wonder what will become of that, because he seems like a person that if he's free and he doesn't want to get caught, he'll do what he wants, right? If he wants to be free, like maybe he's happy to just like shit on the floor and hang out in that room because he's like, convinced himself that he's the world's only self-moving soul because he does whatever he wants. But I don't know. I think more is going to happen with him than that for some reason.
I do wonder if he wouldn't just like kill himself, because life is seemingly horrible for him. Again, the sensory overload, like everything we haven't been in his head, but how everyone has described it is just basically like it's just too much. He just like can't handle it. And I'm pretty sure they've talked about how they've had to stop suicide attempts before, but maybe I made that up, or self-harm or something.
Might be true. Yeah, we do see him like when he sort of goes crazy, right? He sort of crumples within himself and he seems scared, and right.
Yeah.
I guess everything that happens is that one of everything that happens is that now Kalmomas knows that there's secret passages in the palace, right? And how could that go wrong?
I think what you mean is how could that go very right? We're in for a whole lot of fun. Talking about parties.
For now, he seems to just be using them to spy on people, I guess.
Yeah, for now.
For now. I really... Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
I expected you to start the episode with the kids rant again, because them staring at each other when they were infants and they would just stare into each other, that was creepy.
Oh, yeah. That part is interesting, creepy, but his going after people and murdering them, and then that's... Okay, honestly, I can put up with that. Him manipulating Esmenet, that gets to me. Gets to me. We didn't see much of that in this chapter, so I was okay with this section. But
I think pretty much anyone who's not Dunyain that was like outmatched, because they are on another level. So Esmenet is at a disadvantage in some ways, I guess, as far as manipulation goes, because she's their mother and because she has those motherly instincts, but they don't necessarily have the same human or the same familial instincts as a human would.
Yeah, it's really hammered home. I honestly, I think some of the things that chafed against me in the first trilogy, I'm more okay with now, because it's clear just how biologically different they are. Like the fact that they can't even like breed, it's opened a different can of worms for me that bothers me, that Esmenet is literally the only one, like, woman out of who knows how many that could carry a child to term. Like, that seems kind of insane to me, but it's interesting, but just, I don't know. It feels like a little plot conveniency. Although who knows, maybe that's not true. Maybe we'll find out something crazy. But they really are clearly like, they're not, they're human in that, they are Homo sapien, but they're just like so evolved in a sense.
Was it in the
physically?
Was it in the What Comes Before that they talk about Kellhus picked Esmenet because of her intellect?
Yeah.
Or was it in this section of chapters?
Yeah,
somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know anything about Mathanet's mother, so we know Esmenet isn't the only one.
That's true.
But
that's very true. Good point.
But it seems super rare because it's something like Kellhus tried with like something like 17 other women or something, and none of them were able to.
It's weird though that Mathanet is the only one that's sort of normal, right? Like, he doesn't seem to have any. He just seems a bit like a weaker Dunyain, but he doesn't seem to have any weird, characteristics.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, and I guess he never, Mathanet never. Well, yeah, he's not he's on the same step as all of Kellhus's kids, basically. He never had any conditioning, just the the
Yeah.
Dunyain blood or whatever. So he's probably a little less fucked up than Kellhus, I guess, because he
We can actually relate to people.
I wonder if maybe Moangus
Did
did a bit of, training for Mayfinet on his own to sort of stabilize him, I guess. While Kellhus was too busy with his unification wars and his other stuff to pay much attention to the, I guess, raising of the children. I don't know.
I feel like he does talk, Moingus, when we get his big monologue, a little bit about obviously Mayfinet isn't like pure Dunyain, whatever, but I think he did. He just had to have to some degree, right? Because Mayfinet does have some of those skills. That's why he became the Shria, right? Is he manipulated his way through the ranks.
Did Moangus have other children besides Mayfinet? But but Mayfinet was the only one who he could train as Dunyain. I seem to recall he had other children.
So.
Yeah.
Is that right? That would be
I
wonderful if there was other half Dunyains running around.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe the other ones were, malformed or something, just like the failed ones, or maybe the women died or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I would bet, is that what happened, because we know for a fact he slept with some of the, oh my God, why am I blanking? Skilvendi. And so we don't get any details about it, if any of them got pregnant, I don't think, but it would, I imagine the kids came out wrong, or the women just died, or, I have no doubt that if, they came out like basically any other one of the kids, Kellhus's kids, Moingus would have just abandoned them and been like, okay, you can die now. I don't need you.
wasn't what's his name? Nair's. Yeah, didn't Nair's mother have a baby by Moangus?
That does sound like something that happened.
Yeah, I guess they killed her and the baby. Some woman and her baby got killed because the baby came out the wrong color. They knew it was Moangus. I think it was Nair's mother, but I could be wrong about that. So yeah, okay. What I was trying to figure out is if everyone died who also had children with Moangus, or if there were others, possibly. Seems there might be others, but we don't know of them.
I was holding out hope that Casoter was somehow like Moangus's estranged child earlier on, but I'm slowly having to let go of that. It just doesn't seem very likely.
That's a cool theory, though. I hadn't thought about that. That's a really cool theory. I dig it.
We still don't know who he is.
He's the right age. Like, there's clearly something going on with him.
Yeah, and he's got some shit going on. That he's not normal.
There's definitely something going on with him, right? Like, the more we get little bits of information, but nothing that explains what he is and why he's important, right?
And he's apparently gone to hell.
And the skin spy keeps saying, "Oh, you need to kill him," right? Why do you kill him? Is it because he has influence over the non-men? Is that why?
Do we believe this in Skin Spy that the non-man is trying to kill, what's her name, Mimara, or that the Skin Spy is just telling her things to make her do what it wants to do?
Well, I think the Skin Spy is not the only one saying that. Acamian's also saying that. That's how the chapter ends. Is Acamian's like, oh no, we're in the shit. Like, if he falls in love with you, he will kill you. Mm-hmm. So that is dangerous. I mean, I'm certainly scared of what could happen with Cleric. He's not stable, and he is, insanely powerful. Kind of want to see him fight Kellhus, I'm not gonna lie. Kind of the nerdy, wanting to smash the toys together in me. I want to see it. I don't know. I don't weirdly. I get the sense that the Skin Spy is not really lying. Because it kind of seems like the Skin Spy's mission is to keep Mimara alive for whatever reason.
Do you think the mechanism for the killing that he's doing, because Akamian thinks that he will eventually kill them, right? That he will get to a point where he loves them too much and then will kill them. But Skin Spy says he is killing you, which means that he is actively in the process of doing something. Do you think it's
Very,
the
Oh, the
Shiri?
Kiri. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is
That's what he's
killing them?
suggesting, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But again, we don't know exact. I mean, he had
Yeah.
the whole conversation with the Sintis, but that also did not explain much. It did explain something. It did explain that the Skin Spy was not following Akamian. He was there
Yeah.
for either the non-man or the captain for some reason, because he was there before.
Yes.
Yeah, we also got a timeline, I think, roughly, that like,
Yeah.
or at least Mimara thinks that he replaced Soma sometime near, what's the town
Yeah, but-
called?
Yeah, Mara.
Maro.
So before
Mara,
Solargis,
okay.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
I like how Akamian's sure that it's him they want. But I mean, I guess they do now, but they were already interested in
But
something
what's
with
the
that group.
chance that, like, what a coincidence that there's a Skin Spy following someone in this group and then Akamian happens to recruit them, right? And I wonder what's going
So-
on.
I forget when it was. Was it in the Judging Eye when Akamian thinks to himself about how everything is going his way and this expedition was
Yeah.
made to happen, and I guess the goddess of fate
Yeah.
seems to be involved somehow. Do you think she's thrown her lot in, like Yatwar and whatnot? She's also playing her hand.
Maybe.
Who is?
Oh, you're talking about the whore?
Yeah. Her.
Yeah, Mimara says something like, "Oh, it smells like her," or something, or maybe Akamian says, but they do say something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he has this moment of fear where he thinks that everything seems to be coming together really the way he wants it to. Not for him, like it wasn't quite so egocentric as that. It was more, this is what everything wants us to do. And yeah, so to your question, Dan, yeah, maybe it is planned by some god, unclear which. Well, if Akamian's right, it might be the goddess of fate.
'Cause I think in the last
That's
book, he
interesting.
says something when he sees the dream of the coffers and he sees that the map is hidden in the coffer. He's like, it's the same as my excuse. How very convenient. Right? I
Yeah.
think that's when he thinks that.
It definitely seems like the gods have some hand in every storyline, even if it's unclear which gods are doing what. Other than Yatwar is clearly putting her hands on the scales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I think wasn't it at the beginning of this chapter that we had the gift of Yatwar POV?
Oh yeah.
Which it was really brief, but I really enjoyed the kind of like Donnie Darko moment he has, where he's like watching his future self like ahead of him and looking back and seeing his past self behind him, and like I thought that was really cool.
Absolutely, and a huge thing in that, he sees Kellhus like dying.
Yeah.
It's unclear if he's the one who killed Kellhus, but I'm like increasingly getting the sense that like maybe we're just watching this guy like slowly march up, and he's just gonna like walk up in the middle of like some big battle and just like take Kellhus
So
out.
is he the White Luck Warrior then?
It's what it seems like.
That's what I'm assuming too, but
Didn't we get a similar POV in the Judging Eye?
Yeah.
And at the time, I think it was fairly clear that it was the White Luck Warrior, because that ended with him
But is it the same
announcing
person?
to
Yeah.
Nana Ferry. Yeah, if it is the same
Oh.
person.
Interesting if the like spirit is going through people.
Ooh. But, I mean, even if it's going through people, the individual, the identity is the same.
Right, the core spirit,
Yeah.
right, the god. I mean, I definitely think it's the White Luck Warrior. That's the sense I got, right? That's the gun that was fired in a sense, and we're watching the bullet, slowly move towards Kellhus.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm thinking of some random spirit crawling across the landscape, chasing down the Great Ordeal to go kill Kellhus.
I mean, if it's moving through people, I mean, just running with that train of thought for a second, maybe it like ends up going into Sorweel, right? Because we'd like previously speculated, that maybe he's the avatar, and maybe he is, but like he's just one of them, right? And that it's like going on this journey, and it eventually, just because I feel like clearly he has some connection to Yatwer, and the White Luck Warrior is, the brother, right? So
the ground is being prepared, like he's
right.
That's really cool. I hadn't even thought of that. I love that though. It's very like I don't know. Did any of y'all ever see that movie It Follows?
Yes. Oh,
Very cool. Like just this like unstoppable force that just keeps coming. It's always like chugging along slowly. There's other. I think it was like a Jamie Delano Hellblazer storyline that was written similarly about like a dagger that like passed through people and like possesses people, and it just like keeps going. It's
you
like
just can't stop it.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a mortal soul, so it just passes from vessel to vessel. That's a really cool idea. I hope that's happening. I hope that's what's going on.
That is really cool. my husband uses this phrase in Hindi called "sasti maut," which translates roughly to cheap death. If Kellhus does die like that, it would be a very cheap death.
Would it just because you know about it? By the way, not a surprise.
No, I mean, you would expect. Okay, if it is preceded by like some giant duel or something where he meets a worthy warrior and whatnot, maybe not. But if he just dies in the middle of the night, or so the way my husband used it is if some big warrior, for instance, trips over a stone and falls and hurts his head and dies, like for nothing, basically dying for nothing. This feels a bit.
I mean,
in
it's
that
more
category.
I
True.
I almost think it would be, I don't know, poetic if that Kellhus, this giant force of nature, gets just like it would suck if he just like tripped and cracked his head open and died. Like that would be horrible. But like we're watching this force go, so it's not like it comes out of nowhere either. I mean, I feel pretty confident at this point that the White Luck Warrior is going to kill Kellhus before the end. Just the fact that we saw that vision, and every vision we've seen so far has come true. This definitely seems like a pretty
deterministic. You think Kellhus is going to die in this book? Or we're going to have to see the White Luck Warrior go through different people for like 3 books until he finally...
Unfortunately, I feel like that's kind of what we're going to have to deal with. It's just going to be like, we're going to see, I think we'll like gradually learn more about it maybe, and then it'll be like sometime in the climax of the last book, Kellhus just gets got. But I don't know, we'll see. Maybe the White Luck Warrior is going and it'll just witness and something else will happen and kill Kellhus. I don't know. I would be shocked too if Kellhus doesn't get to, Golgo Taroth and, gets to blast some Sranc and shit. Like, I'm sure he'll still get to like do cool stuff, but
will he wield the heron spear is the question.
That would be cool.
The warrior or
I'm
Kellhus?
still waiting for that to come back. Yeah, that's like way back. It was planted like in book 1. Still waiting for that payoff.
Yeah. The only thing we know about it is that it was lost in a Skilvendi raid, like, hundreds of years ago. And
it's been a while.
so,
Maybe the batteries are out. Yeah. That's forever.
If my dude just doesn't work anymore, that would be hilarious.
Did we get more recent information about it? I feel like we did, or am I thinking of another book?
It's like a space gun.
It's
like, I mean, it's unclear if it's like a lightsaber or if it like shoots lasers or what, but like it's a sci-fi weapon.
Okay, no, I meant about like its location. Did someone say something in this series that
Don't think
told us
so.
anything
I
about
think it
I
was
don't
in
the
think
the
so.
no? Okay.
appendices, right?
No.
That it mentioned it.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
last
okay.
thing
Okay, maybe
I
that's what I'm
remember.
thinking of.
What in reading these, and this occurred to me that I guess I didn't really think of it the first time I read it, but in reading these sections, does it feel like the plot is moving slower? It just seems like it's plodding along. It isn't. The first trilogy seemed to move pretty quickly, and the second seems to
Yeah.
not be. And I'm guessing that's a deliberate choice. But what are everyone's thoughts on just that?
I mean, I think in the first trilogy we had an endpoint that we were making steady progress towards, right? And we still have that here with the Great Ordeal. And but one, we're not following the main thread of that. We're following Sorweel with his slow thoughts there, and I guess the other two, it's not really clear where they're going. So
I mean, I think the big difference, because you're right, it's structurally it's the same thing, right? It's a big march, you know. It's these armies just like marching along with a destination in mind that I'm sure they're going to reach at the end of the story. But there's just hasn't been as many obstacles. Like I've really liked the character development we gotten, but it definitely feels like, particularly with the Great Ordeal, that it's kind of like they're just walking, you know, they're just hanging out. Like in the first Holy War, it was like they
Yeah.
had different cities to conquer, different like natural habitats to endure. You know, I'm sure we'll get some of that, but it certainly hasn't been as eventful as I expected. I certainly expected a lot more Sranc
Yeah,
to
maybe it
be
just
throwing it
feels
down.
hard to quantify the advancement because before it was like, yeah, I know how far distance is, I know how far we went this time, so I know we're progressing. But here, there's nothing to reference it to, right?
and every other chapter also had the breakdown of some battle, right? And then some chapters were entirely battle scenes, but every other chapter opened at least with a description of what happened that made it feel like things were
Well, you'll
moving,
get some
I
battle
guess.
scenes. Don't worry about it. Don't worry
I
about
don't
it.
want keep the battle scenes.
I know. I wonder how that's going to play out with the Sranc. If they're, is it called hoarding? Is that
Yeah.
what they call
Yeah.
it? Like how they're massing together. Like, you know, I feel like there were, you know, love it or hate it, there was talk of tactics in the first trilogy, and like the Sranc don't really seem like tacticians to me, you know. Like, so I wonder how that'll play out differently. But also, you know, we have I'm also curious what Kellhus or Esmenet are going to do about about Faniel,
Fanaya? Fanaya?
Faniel. Yeah, like
Oh
he's
yeah.
making moves in the south, and he's got a primary Kasharum that he's rolling with. Like those guys they sacked Iothia. That's big news, you know. Like that's
Yeah.
not yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there'll be they're
And
gonna be
maybe
battling on
Zelm is the
multiple fronts.
ally to them,
I
maybe, right? And there's riots everywhere
yeah
too.
yeah yeah.
I'm definitely at this point much more interested in the story of like holding this empire together and dealing with, you know, now with the Yawirian cult and yeah, exactly, the new Padirja and Zoom and all of that, and like knowing partially also just because I mean I care a lot about Esmenet at this point. And you know, and having to deal with like the politics of the court and her horrible child. Uh, you know, as opposed to like the great, like I love Sorweel and I actually like a lot of the characters, but it definitely feels like it's plodding along.
Yeah,
Like,
agreed.
Okay.
We also found out about Mimara being pregnant.
And being holy, I
yep.
guess, or being like pure, is also
Oh yeah,
interesting.
that too. Mm-hmm.
We were wondering last time. We've never seen a description of her seeing something good, but apparently there is good things if we can trust her vision.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't And also the analysis she did about whether a Kamian is damned because he's a sorcerer or because he just did bad things or like damnable things. And specifically the one that she zeroes in on is leading the expedition, but it could be just anything else. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, how do you trust the judging eye? Do you trust what it says about damnation or not? Or is it the interpretation of the one who has it?
Yeah, that's what I think is up for debate, right? Like how she's interpreting it seems, like she's trying to decide how to read it, and then like that inner conflict she's having where she's like, is he? Because it's like she's wondering, is it because a Kamian is against Kellhus that he's damned?
Yeah.
Right. Or is it because he's he's a magic user? I don't quite trust her read on the judging eye at this point at all.
And I think you have the added question of like, why does she have this power? Like, is someone making her see these things, right? Or is one of the gods, like it would make sense for it to be like Yatwar, for example, right? Because she is now pregnant, right? And that somehow seems to be tied to her purity. And, Yatwar is goddess of the downtrodden and, fertility. So I definitely get the sense that like there is some divine magic interplay going along, but we'll see, I guess. Yeah, I certainly don't believe she's a reliable narrator in terms of like, I believe she's seen the things she says she's seen, but I don't know that, her interpretations are necessarily accurate.
And who do you think is the father? Is it? There's three possibilities, like she says, right?
No. She was like, yeah, there's three, but really there's only one.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure she even like corrects herself.
No.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
I'm just glad he's not actually her biological father. You know? Like,
true. So true.
It's all kinds of messed up, the situation.
It's already pretty messed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would only
it
just...
was.
Oh, God.
And it's worse. I didn't think of the Yatwar connection. That was interesting, Carl. I guess that's the other entry point. It feels like Yatwar has entry points in all the places that we've been following, right? In Dunyain Heights, is that? I don't know. We've of course got Esmenet dealing with the Yatwar temple and the White Lug warrior and whatnot. And we've got Sorweel here, and I guess now with Mimara pregnant, maybe that what you said has something to do with Yatwar as well. So the consult is trying to protect her for her judging eye, right? Like, or at least I don't know if they know it specifically as the judging eye, but because of how she saved them, they're suddenly interested in her. I think that became clear here, right? And do they want anything to do with her unborn child, or is it just something that they're trying to deal with?
Maybe it's just bait to make her do what they want. Sort of. I don't know.
I don't know how they would use her child other than like on a personal level. Because her child doesn't seem like, assuming that K means the dad, like the child may have magical abilities, but it kind of feels like a really long-term bet for a child to just be like
But I mean, we know that
user,
people that have judging eye cannot have all children are stillborn. Right?
Oh shit, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, okay, so this child's screwed.
So I misread one of the sentences that was... Where did I keep my book? Oh, here it is. I misread one of the sentences that about the brain of us, or the soul in the Synthes, when the crow has trouble thinking something up. I misread that as the the skin spy thinking that they need to plant a soul in Mimara's unborn
I
child.
don't think so.
But but I don't think that. I mean, I reread it and I corrected myself. But yeah, I did go to the place of like, did they need? What do they need for the rebirth of the no god? And would this child play a role in that
It's an
somehow?
interesting thought. It's an interesting thought.
When Dan says that, it's usually, oh,
No,
that's
no, no,
garbage,
no.
and I'm trying not to say
That's
so.
all right, Steve? See? Steve agrees too.
It's interesting
Okay.
too
All
that the Synthes, ends by telling Suor, the skin spy, that if you continue tracking them, they'll take you home, presumably meaning
Yeah.
Galgo Taroth. That's not where they're currently headed. So that there is the implication, that something is going to lead them from the coffers to Galgo Taroth. I mean, is that just like the implication that like a Kamian is going to learn about Ishual and then decide time to go destroy Kellhus? Like, or is there something else going on there?
I mean, I'm assuming his ultimate goal is some sort of confrontation once he's got the goods, or like unleashes informs the remaining Dunyain, and they come out and do whatever they're gonna do.
So for the first-time readers, if they make it to Ishual, what do you expect they'll find?
Dunyain.
And what are the Dunyain gonna do? They're gonna be like, oh, we need to go grab Kellhus back?
I feel like Akamian's gonna get his butt kicked and thrown out of the place, but I don't know what he's planning to do there. A bunch of people all like Kellhus. What is he expecting to get out of it? Or like, how is he expecting to be entertained at all?
Yeah, like they don't want to be discovered. But then again, they aren't magic users. So
That's true.
I think the big kind of questions here are like, did the consult end up finding Ishual in the 30 years? And did Kellhus ever go back?
Good point too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if either one would lead to them getting wiped out, or if they can get enslaved in some way, or like, I don't know. I certainly don't think a Kamian is going to find them. I don't think it's going to be a roaring success, certainly.
Yeah, I also wouldn't be surprised to if they were all dead. Like, if there was because of the way that the few that were spoiled by Moengus's dreams, wandered into the labyrinth beneath Ishual and just like offed themselves because they were tainted, and if all of the Dunyainers have somehow been tainted by Kellhus through dreams, or if he paid them a visit, he could presumably wipe them all out also, because he's doing like triple Gnostic, magic or whatever he's doing. Like he can basically do anything. So yeah.
Also, what do you guys think of the dreams that Kamian is having now? What do you think is going on with those? So he's dreaming now about being chained to other people and being led towards like an entrance, right? He seems to have been tortured or something. He has no teeth. He's emaciated.
Yeah, for the first time, he's inhabiting someone completely different. He knows he's not Siswatha.
How is that possible? How could he be seeing the different perspective in Siswatha?
The gods? I don't know.
I had a moment of doubt about the heart that the mandate schoolmen use to keep Seshwata's dreams alive. Like, that almost feels like a thing, I don't know about the dreams bit, but the heart and keeping it alive and whatnot, that almost feels like a consult thing. What were their people called? I forget. But I don't know. I'm wondering if these people were manipulated somehow into using the heart to do something. Are they keeping Seshwata's dreams alive? Are they following Seshwata's agenda? Or is it indirectly the consul's agenda?
What would the consult get out of keeping the memory of the consult alive, though?
That's true. They did spend a great deal of energy hiding themselves and creating the skin spice and stuff.
I almost feel like if it's anyone's influence, it's like the gods or something. But it also kind of seems like the gods weren't really playing around with humans for a while, at least, until Kellhus showed up. But I don't know. Maybe that's a misreading of what's going on.
And it's interesting, the skin spice Soma, he says that he senses Chigra strong in Akamian, almost like it's more than in other mandate schoolmen, which is interesting because his dreams are taking him away from Seshwata. But, so, yeah. No idea what's going on there. And the dream we saw in this section, it almost felt like a normal dream, like just weird things happening, not one of the. But I guess it was. I think it was still a mandate schoolman dream. But
what's occurring to me as we're talking about this too is that, like, so, taking for granted that the gods are real, because it definitely seems like they're real. What were they doing during the first apocalypse? Right? Like, that doesn't seem like something they would ignore. So it kind of, I could totally see them playing a role. How do they feel about the non-men? The non-men don't worship them.
No, I think, what's her name? The Beliopa?
Yeah.
Says something about how the no god dwells in kind of the blind spots of the gods. So like, maybe because the gods sort of act through people for the most part, like maybe they weren't able to react quickly enough to the no god once he, made himself.
They seem to be able to see the future though, somewhat.
But like an occluded version of the future, right? She says that in that same section where she's like, they have their perspectives, but like the no god dwells like outside of that. Because he is oblivion, and like I don't know. I kept thinking about how, like, there's the darkness that comes before, which Kellhus is very much concerned with, and then he's describing himself as the light. And then in this same section, the Padiraja refers to him as the light that blinds, as opposed to the and then you have the whole thing with the Kisharim, like blinding themselves so that they're able to see. I don't know. There's some. I'm a mess. I don't know.
There's something there.
I need to diagram this, I think.
Get like that, that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme, with all the postcards on the wall, drawing your conspiracy board.
I mean, we're pretty sure there is some sort of conspiracy going on, but who's doing the conspiracy and who's puppeting who and who's manipulating who is the question.
I will say, I feel like the gods are self-sabotaging if they're trying to stop Kellhus. Because to me, it seems like the end game should be the no god. And so it's like, maybe worry about wiping out the consult and then worry about Kellhus. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their plan is.
Fair enough. What do you guys think about the captain being a fanatic? the other interesting information we got. I don't know. That scene is
Yes.
very tense. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, he is. I definitely felt the suspense constantly with him. Like who basically, if the character's like introduced newly, I'm like, oh, they're about to get killed by the
Poor stone
captain.
hags. There's not many left. Maybe, yeah.
I think there's 2 now.
So, what was the point? I don't feel like they were put to use. He bullied them into coming with them. And then they all died before they actually battled any Sranc. So
That's so true.
what was the point? And then the one guy left alive, he killed him for blaspheming. Okay.
Maybe as an example
Yeah.
for other guys.
Yeah, I don't think his group needs examples. I think they know exactly what he did.
Just in case it wasn't clear.
To the one, setting an example to the one other stone hag left in. Well, he was the last one left, right? He was.
But he's the last one in good health.
Oh, there were 2? Okay,
he was the
okay.
guy that was actually able to follow them and be decent. The other guys are like barely following, I think.
Yeah.
Am I understanding correctly too that they're not feeding them Kiri, so they're just like deal with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the non-man feeds Kiri to all the people he loves, which I guess is everyone in this group for some reason.
I don't think he loves them yet. Because if he loved them, they would be dead.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Is that an immediately thing? Like, oh, I'm feeling love now. I must kill.
And I think it's
I
implied
don't know.
that
That's
all the
fair.
stone hags or people that try to leave, they're just grabbed by Soma and killed immediately, pretty much. There's not many good choices left.
Yeah.
That's right. They disappeared.
No.
Yeah.
What do you think the Kiri is? Like, I feel like it's something, you know? Like, I feel like it's not just like some intoxicant. Like, there's something going on there.
Yeah, I think he's just microdosing them with LSD.
It's
More like
straight
crack or
LSD.
something. Right.
You know, they're like enervated for like 12 hours at a time, and they're feeling pretty like a little elevated, and I don't know.
I'm just waiting to find out it's like the innards of non-men or something like fucked up like that.
Are you more interested in like the contents or the effects? Because I feel like the effects are already pretty shady, no?
No, I mean, what is it that can do this thing? Like, I feel like it's not just like a drug. Like, I mean, clearly it functions as a drug, but I mean, like, what is the material physically being used, right? Like, I feel like, is it some sort of like corrupted plant? You know, like what is it that he is actively feeding these people?
It is scary though how it
Makes
seems to be desensitizing them to like any sort of humanity. Because it seems like Kimi seems to imply that like all these things that's happening, like normally, people would protest, it wouldn't happen, but very sort of like nothing can shake them at this point. They don't care about anything.
It kind of reminds me of how I don't know. It reminds me of how the non-men function. That like I don't know if we haven't seen if like horrible things make them feel something. Then like it's a little unclear exactly if they're just like numb to everything or what. But yeah, I don't know. It's some weird non-men bullshit.
Yeah, it is concerning that Akamian feels his thoughts and feelings be numbed. But also, he went back to take more, despite feeling that. Which
he's hooked.
I guess he needs to keep up, otherwise he's going to get killed. But he doesn't seem to have qualms about it, He's not second-guessing.
Well, they're going
that he
very
needs to
fast,
go get
right?
some.
He says, like, they wouldn't be able to make this sort of pace without it seems.
He's also clearly addicted. Like it has addictive properties. This is clearly not. Yeah.
It's interesting that it's desensitizing them because one of the only exchanges we have with Cleric in this section is when he asks Mimara if it's a different sensation for humans to be touched by someone else than them touching themselves. You know, like I feel like that's another interesting insight into the way the non-men function and the way they perceive the world around them.
Absolutely.
So, do we know what the non-men call themselves? Because I doubt they refer to themselves as non-men.
Isn't it?
No,
Is
Incoroi.
it Inkaroi?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the consult people.
You're
right?
thinking of Ishroi, which is the noble.
Ishroi.
Yeah.
Sorry. What is that?
The nobles. That's like the upper caste of non-men. We definitely we got a name because if you may remember that they call, what do they call humans, like the people of the dawn, people of the summer.
The boys of summer.
Yeah, there's something
In their
about
own
like
tongue, they're
time or weather or something that they call
Kunoroi,
people.
with a U with a umlaut, with a
Oh.
triangle, which I'm not sure how to pronounce. I don't think it's an umlaut.
What does it mean, Kunaroi? Because I feel like we definitely got the. Because yeah, they have some name for humans that it's just basically about how they're short-lived and feel things.
Were the non-men long-lived before the Inkoroi gave them immortality?
Long-lived, but not as.
They seem very long.
They're not immortal.
From
yeah.
what we've
Yeah.
heard from Akemian, right?
Yeah. This one's
Yeah.
lived a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
it's
repeatedly get asked, "Who is he?" You know, This dude. He's gonna be someone we know.
I can't think who, but someone. Yeah,
I feel like
agree.
there are like, there's only like a handful of options. It's like it's someone who's been named, just going off of narrative logic. I don't know though. I haven't paid enough attention to all the names. I remember Kujara Kinmoy, who was like one of the kings. I think Nil Gikas is one of the kings. We also clarified the name of the wraith in the mountain last episode, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
That was one we hadn't heard as often, though.
Okay, the non-men call themselves the people of dawn. Yeah, so that's what it means.
People of Dawn. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes sense. Cool. Are we ready to move on to quotes?
Sounds good.
Steve.
If Dan doesn't get arrested first.
Yeah. They found you.
Let's see. A couple.
Had the Kiri stash,
Yeah.
man.
On page 157 in my copy, which I know we are all reading different editions, you can only believe so many lies before becoming one of them.
There were a lot of really good epigraphs. There's one I remember being like, damn, that's real.
Well, Carl's looking for that one. I had just one more. 159, but time's passage has a way of blunting our sharper questions, of making things difficult to confront, soft with malleable familiarity.
Nice.
Yeah, the second epigraph in chapter 6, if you find yourself taken unawares by someone you thought you knew, recall that the character revealed is as much your own as otherwise. When it comes to men and their myriad mercenary natures, revelation always comes in twos. Felt like that was...
I like that.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think is true, right? Any exchange, there's always two, even if you're not aware of it. something you discover about someone else does tell you about yourself too, whether you expected it or didn't, or misinterpreted something, or there's always that yeah, self aspect to it.
Can someone help me understand the second epigraph of chapter 5?
Let me look at it.
The world has its own
The
ways,
one about murder.
sockets so deep that not even the gods can dislodge them. No urn is so cracked as fate. I have no idea what it means.
I think it maybe just means like the universe has rules, and even the
What about
gods
the
can't
urn?
change those rules, maybe. So Nero is so cracked as fate. I don't know what fate being cracked would mean.
I mean, does that mean it's, like it's settled, like the urn has been cracked? Like if you think of fate as like the cracks in the urn, like it can't be repaired or it can't be altered?
Or is it the gods trying really hard to change things, or people trying to change fate, and all they're succeeding at is cracking the urn? It is
It also
cracked, but
implies that at
not
some point
broken.
it might break, and it's getting closer and closer to breaking point.
Right? So isn't that contradicting the first part then?
Well, if fate is something built by the gods, though, and not like a fundamental law of the universe, then maybe that's what it's referring to. But I don't know. Who says this proverb?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ascensius.
The limping pilgrim.
I don't know. The way I read it is, it seems like fate isn't even. At least what he is saying is that the gods can't even mess with fate. Like they can mess with it, but they fundamentally cannot change it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people try breaking it, but nobody can. Yeah, I think I'm coming over to your
Right.
side. Yeah.
Is that there's just like.
I think that makes sense. Because it's something that everyone tries to change, fate, right?
Yeah.
Right. Can the gods be killed? I wonder.
I mean, the no god, if he is a true god,
He's
was
a no
killed,
god.
wasn't he?
That's true. Yeah, he has been no. Like,
Still
why
got
is
the
he?
god in his name.
Why is he oblivion? Like, why is he their blind spot? Is there something about his like fundamental cosmological nature? I mean, it seems like that, but like, did he make that happen, or was that something that like he was just create? Like, he's like an aspect of the universe,
Or is he a creation of the techne? Like, did the, is he just a creation? Or
Yeah, maybe the no god isn't even like sentient. Like, we hear a voice, but maybe it's not like really. I don't know, almost just like, I guess like a force of nature is kind of what I'm getting at.
yeah, I mean, and he has a physical presence,
Right.
on like in Irwa, which is unique in the gods.
Does that description seem like the descriptions of Korai, and they are pieces of emptiness, but they're the tears of God, so they do have a connection to the gods, but the no god is a blind spot somehow. He is.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. And like the no god rolls in like a big sarcophagus inside of a whirlwind, and like the sarcophagus is embedded with a bunch of Korai too, which is since they are oblivion, maybe that's why he is. That's why he's in their blind spot.
Right.
Which all reeks of like manipulation, like by the consult or like that, like that feels like something that was created, not something that exists on the outside.
Right. I mean, it makes sense that they couldn't see it if it's always been that way, even if it wasn't like, even if it was created like that, like just fundamentally from its moment of existence, they would not be able to see it, and so they cannot stop it ahead of time. And then
I'm
once,
so curious to know what, like, I want to know the origins of the no gods so
I
bad.
know number one mystery. Them and still the Dunyain. I still want to know what the hell. I'm gonna be so mad if we don't find out what their deal is, their origin story.
I can't point to any like in particular like any particular sections from these chapters that we read, but it just kept occurring to me while reading it. Like there are so many parallels between the way the Dunyain are described in these pages and the non-men. Like are, you know, and there's that whole like does Kellhus, is he, you know, possessed of some non-man blood, or, you know, I don't know. Or is that like part of the, because like that's a parallel too, right? The fact that the non-men can't have children with human, or not very successfully, or it has happened, did happen, but like it was super hard to do, and like that's a parallel to the Dunyain.
If the Anasarimber are
So,
Anasarimber, then they somewhat have some non-men blood. If Seswad is a father, then not, unless we don't know something about Seswadas. But I don't think so, because Seswada was from like a low-born origin, I think we've been told. So it wouldn't happen.
Anasurim
Yeah, I think so.
have mixed
Some
blood? I forget.
Descendants
how
of
we
like
know
a mix between the
Yeah, there
non-man king or something and some woman at some point. I think that's why they
I
live
see.
longer, I think
Okay.
they say.
that was also, yeah, there was in the appendices, there was a mention of an Anasurimbor who was rumored to have had non-man blood, or something like that.
Got it.
Maybe. It is, yes.
It's the Lord of the Rings of it all. The line of
The name is
doing the dine.
suspiciously similar, isn't it?
It's so close, yeah. Deliciously close.
Cool. Any other quotes that anyone wants to call out? Or topics?
Any predictions for the first time readers for the next set of chapters?
I don't think they're gonna get to the coffers until the end of this book. That's my theory. But I do think they will get to it at the end of the book. I don't think that's a book 3 and 4 thing, because it seems like they have to move on to Golgotharoth.
They don't call it the slog for nothing.
Yeah.
At least 3 more in Akamian's group will die. Because they cried. That's how they'll die.
Because they cried. I'm curious, what do y'all think are in the coffers? Like, is it just a library, or is there like something in there?
I've been picturing a huge pile of coins for some reason. But
I think that's what
gold coins.
the non-men called the skin eaters, right? Huge riches and stuff like that.
Maybe that's why. Yeah.
But
I don't expect that to actually be true, but that's the image the word coffer keeps triggering in my head. I don't.
Well, right, 'cause that's what it normally means, right? It's storehouse of riches. I mean, that's interesting. What if there's a dragon inside?
Interesting.
I didn't even think about that until you said that. But what if it's a little Bakker nod to Smaug and all
we've
the
seen
other
a
dragons that inspired Smaug?
Sludges, I guess. Somewhat.
Yeah. It's iron bones. That was cool.
Yeah, and it's at the coffers they're sealed in the strange like soul magic behind this like soul magic door thing, right? Like that's I don't know. I feel like that could be an interesting trial. I mean, maybe it's just the map of Ishual in there, and in which case, like, Kasar is gonna lose his shit.
Yeah, what is Acamian's plan here? Like, what is it? What are they going to do
Yeah.
when they show up and there's no gold? I mean, unless there is, right? And he lucks out, and it's like,
But you
oh,
think
you're the
Kasota
riches I
cares
promise
about
you.
gold? He doesn't seem to be, what is he gonna do with the gold? How are we gonna transport it? What is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's maybe more than everyone else. I don't know if he
Okay.
cares that Acamian lied, though. Like, would that bother him? He has his own weird sense of honor, you know? It like really horrible,
Yeah,
messed
but what do you
up
think? What do you think is
honor.
his
But
objective, right? Because if his objective is not that, why did he agree to go with Ikemian? What is he trying to get, right?
I guess
Maybe,
I sort of just thought this is
maybe.
just he does it because he loves it. Like he loves the violence. He loves the slog. You know, he lives for the slog.
Is he really relying on Akamian's word though to see what he thinks he might find at the coffer? Doesn't he also have
Yeah.
what cleric might tell him, or is his memory so far gone that there's no way he can trust what the man says, the non-man says?
I don't know. I really wonder what he like how he has cleric under his sway, you know? We did get a little glimpse of like he's telling him is like they remind you of like is it just these like teasing cleric? You know this does okay. Going back to Justin, was it you who had the theory that Kazodar is one of Moingus's kids? Because if he is using some Dunyain manipulation, that would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And if they go to Ishwal and they figure that out and they're like, "Oh, you're one of us," but like not, you know, you're impure. That would be crazy if they go and the Dunyain fucking kill Kasodar.
I feel like he would take it pretty hard that Kellhus was born of the Dunyain too. He would, yeah.
Oh yeah, that would right break the magic.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's the role the fanatic will play because he needs to have his beliefs broken down.
I mean, presumably he's just out there, like he is a skin eater because he's fanatic, and because he's like, he's all about battling back the Sranc, right? Like that's what
Oh,
he
that's
loves.
true.
He's
Good
like
point.
that career soldier who's seen so much violence and like horrible shit that's like it's all he can do. Like anymore, he's too broken to do anything else. Maybe, or he's half Dunyain and he's up to some other shit. You know.
Or both.
Or
Yeah,
both.
or both. Yeah. Kellhus went crazy. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm half thinking that Akamian will end up at Ishwal by himself. I don't know if he'll bring the company with him. Or even Mimara for that matter. I'm curious to see what
Yeah, I think
section of
she's in
that
it.
group ends up at Ishwal.
Yeah, Mimara's in it for the long haul.
yeah, that would be interesting though if he secrets away. He gets the map and he's just like, later.
Yeah, pieces out.
Okay, thanks, bye.
That's kind of how I was picturing this series. Like I thought of Akamian's quest as being like this solo thing where he was going to be like wandering the wilds of the north, like investigating old ruins and shit on his own. And, maybe there would be some of that. It'd be kind of, I don't know. There's something like really romantic about that I love.
He definitely. We're gonna see more and more, as we've said. More and more of the group just get killed off until there's like barely anyone left. It wouldn't surprise me if we get down to it and it's just a Kamian and Mimara.
Yeah.
Because Bakker is the type like he's not afraid to like kill off a character, but like the main characters he hasn't really touched. So I
Yeah.
would be shocked if both of them don't make it to the end. Maybe they die at the end, but I would be surprised if book 4, we don't still have Akamian and Mimara as primary characters.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
Yeah.
yeah, lots to look forward to next week. we will decide after we finish recording how much to read for next week. But shall we do outros meanwhile? Steve, do you want to start us off?
Sure. You could find me on pagechewing.com and all the podcasts and trouble we get into. All the links, I'm guessing, are down below. But yeah, I think the first time we read, we did 4 through, or the next 3 chapters. So I'm guessing probably around that. But yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool.
Oh, that way? Okay.
Dan, I'll pass it to you.
Dan? Yeah.
Yeah. You can find me on the Page Chewing forum at the Empire 17. A couple of weeks, you can find me in Japan. It will be way easier because there's not as many white guys as in North America. So the chances are way higher. But we'll see. Justin?
Hey, I'm Justin. You can find me on the Page Chewing forum and on midnightmovietrain.com. There's a kind of a fun series that my wife, Betsy Midnight, is working on. The Secretly Lit series. It's like a data project where she's picked apart and tried to quantify the influence of great works of literature on film, on like popular film. So that should be like a 5 or 7 part series, a weekly thing. So,
Super cool.
Very cool.
Nice.
Definitely gonna check that out.
she's like a data nerd, and she like is a good, she's a much better writer than me too. So it's fun. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'm Carl. You can find me throughout social media at Carl D. Albert, or ideally on the Page Chewing forum. You can find my book, Truth of Crowns. You just want to look it up. Not quite as bleak as this, but actually more people
There's
die.
a lot of if you like grief and tragedy and death, definitely check out Carl's book.
If you like grief, tragedy, and death.
Yeah, it's my thing. So.
Yeah, and you can find me on the YouTube channel Reading by the Rainy Mountain, and I haunt the Page Chewing forums all the time. And I agree with Steve about the grief, tragedy, and death in Carl's books. I enjoyed the book quite a bit. Go check it out. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.